something. The context is created outside your component chain, either in a separate file, usually in a separate file. For now, we'll just stick it over here, but you should ideally store it in a separate file called like the context.ts, जहां पे you should store your context. अभी के लिए I am just storing it over here. Const bulb context equal to react.create context, or you can simply import create context from here and call create context. Either is fine. Const bulb context equal to create context. यहाँ पे मैं bulb का data store करूँगा. I will store my bulb data over here and I will use it everywhere. I don't have to define it in a component and send it down a component chain. I have defined it outside the components. I will consume it from outside the components. I will consume it over here. What did I write? You get bulb on type function. If we get, then our life is sorted. So I can do something like, get bulb on bulb context, or, get context, let's say bulb on, something like this. Because I've defined a global context variable कि ये मेरा data store करेगा. कौन सा data? What data will it store? That is what is defined in point 2. Provider. This will get complicated. There are two ways to do this. We are going with the more difficult one right now. This component wraps parts of your application and provides the context values to all its descendants. This is super important. This component wraps part of your application, provides the context value to all its descendants. Any component that it's the child of the provider can access the context. This will be a very hard statement to digest. If you have gone through the Solana classes, you might remember we had a Solana wallet adapter or provider over there, Solana model provider over there, wallet model provider over there. I said we will understand this when we reach the context API. This is that. The provider provides your context API, provides your context to all the children. So in this case, I want कि जो light component है, I might want to use the context here, even though we don't. जो light bulb component है, I will need to use the context over here. The light switch component, here I will need to use the context. So step 2 is wrapping your components inside a provider. Let's make this capital. Bulb context. Wrap your application inside a bulb context dot provider. This is the second heartbeat. What did it say? This component wraps part of your application. This is a part of my application. For me, though, it's my full application. But you can also wrap some parts of your application. I could have put this bulb context provider yahan pe bhi, right below the div. Because just this guy and this guy needs to consume the context. Context doesn't need to be consumed by the light component, right? Isko to zarurat nahi hai. So I have wrapped the light component, but if I want, I can wrap just these two as well. The component wraps parts of your applications and provides the context value to all its descendants. ये जो context value है, जो आपने context create किया है, the place where you are going to store this and this, they get provided to all its descendants. अब this guy wants to use it, it can. This guy wants to use it, it can. So you have to use this provider for providing the value to all the children. You have to wrap your application inside such providers. If you go back to the Solana classes, we wrapped our application inside a Solana wallet provider, something like this, if you remember. And then another two. Over there also, we were using the context API. Here also, we are using the context API. We have defined the context, step 1. We have wrapped our application inside the context, step 2. Harkirat, why have you not done it over here? ऐसे क्यों नहीं किया आपने? Why did you not wrap the div? It wouldn't matter. All my children will get access. All the children of this component tree will get access to this context. I only want this guy and this guy to access it. I don't want this div to access it anyways. So it doesn't matter if this div gets wrapped or not. So let me wrap my application like this. When you are defining the provider, then you also define कि क्या भेजना है नीचे. What is this context holding? The value. Here I will write, here I want to send down an object. I repeat, I am saying I want to send down an object whose Bulb on key is bulb on that I've defined over here. Whose set bulb on key is this? If I wanted to pass just a string, so I could have been like, I'll pass something like this, let's say. If I wanted to pass something like, my name, I would pass it down like this. What do I want the context to hold? This variable and this variable. यही दो variable तो हैं that I want to access here and here. Some of them I want to access here, other ones I want to access here. So I say here I am going to pass down the bulb on and the set bulb on keys, and the value of this is ये state variable right here and ये state variable right here. I can also name this something else. I can be like, a bulb is what I want to store as an object. इसका मतलब ये है कि इस context में store क्या हो रहा है? What is getting stored inside the context? Right now, inside this context object, I'm storing an object which has a bulb on key, जिसकी कुछ value है, and a set bulb on key which also has some value. If I want, I can store a third key over here, name Harkirat, let's say something like this. So you can put like a very complex object in your context. I am just putting two things, this and this. I have provided the values. I just need to consume the values next. I don't have to define them over here. I don't have to pass them down the prop chain. I can simply say const bulb on equal to use context, bulb context. That is it. Use context. Where does use context come from? It comes from React. So what did I say? Here, step 1, define the context. Step 2, provide the value that you want children to have. And step 3, consume the context. कि यहाँ पे I want to consume the bulb variable, bulb on variable. यहाँ पे I want to consume the bulb on variable and the set bulb on variable. These two variables I want to consume here. Bulb on variable I want to consume here. Hakiyat, why is this an object? Because use context will return you the full object. इस object में there are two keys, bulb on, set bulb on. So you can destructure the object over here. Here you have two keys, right? Let me just destructure those two keys, and बाकी की application तो is exactly the same. It works also the same. But prop drilling went away. I had to write some very complex logic here. I had to create something called the context. But once that was done, the application looks clean. I don't have to pass down, A equal to A, B equal to B, and then consume them here and then pass them down. The value of this bulb on and set bulb on got teleported directly to the light bulb component, got teleported directly to the light switch component. They did not have to go through this specific, middle component. Let's see, does it work? It doesn't work yet because I still have these arguments. Let me get rid of them. There's still a bug over here. I'm sure some of you can see it already. Let me see if the naked eye can catch it. It cannot. Open the console. A is not defined. Let me get rid of this. Go through the code one more time. But our application works without any prop drilling. If you, oopsie daisy. If you ignore this extra thing I had to add, let me remove it. If you ignore that extra thing, it's such a beautifully written application. It has no prop drilling inside. I don't have to pass in props from here to here to here. I can read through it very well. Ki, achha, this renders the light component, which renders the light bulb component, which is rendering the bulb. I don't care where the state comes from, as long as it comes from somewhere. Pehle we were passing it as props. Now we are consuming it from the context. How did we create the context? Step 1. We defined the context over here by calling create context. Step 2, we provided the context over here. Step 3, we consumed the concept over here. 3 things you have to do to use the context API. There is one more, addition we can do on top, which we will do very soon. Do we understand the context API? ये समझ आ गई? So state management is actually much easier than this. Also, you can define this in a separate if you want to keep your component clean. Let me give, one more thing we have to do. And then, but do you remember in the React world, sorry, in the Solana world, let me open those slides and don't get overwhelmed for the non-Solana people over here. If you look at the wallet adapter and, let me show you the thing that I'm looking for. Token launch, there you go. I'll spend 20 more seconds here. If I'm not able to find it, I will stop. Where is it? I want to show you a React application that sort of uses this context API. Let's see if Akash has found it already. He's usually fast. There we go. Thank you, Akash sir. Akash sir should be very appreciated. Oh no, that's the wrong slides. That's slides for today. My bad. He should not be appreciated. Where is that? I want to show you a real world example of what we're trying to build next. It's not here, which is very surprising. Should be here. Add this. There you go. Look at this component. Don't get too overwhelmed. But if you remember when we were creating the token launchpad in the Solana cohort, in the Web3 cohort, we wrote all of the logic here, the token launchpad logic, but we wrapped it inside a lot of providers, connection provider, wallet provider, wallet model provider. These were also using the context APIs. Notice that I have wrapped my application inside a bunch of providers. Are we doing the same thing over here? What are we doing over here? I have wrapped my application inside a provider. It looks a little ugly though. यहाँ पे bulb context dot provider is written. यहाँ पे simply wallet model provider is written. Wallet provider is written. It doesn't have a dot in the middle. It's some sort of a custom component. And ours isn't, a custom component. Ours directly uses the context API. Ours doesn't hide. I repeat, ours doesn't hide that we are using context. Basically, it would, if you are creating a library in the future, you don't want to expose your context provider like this. Dot provider use kar lo. No, that is not what these guys are doing. Connection provider comes from an external library. Where does it come from? It comes from @Solana/wallet adapter React. Wallet adapter comes from @Solana/wallet adapter React. They don't give you a context. They don't export the context. They export a component. How can you create a similar component? How can you create a component called, let's say, bulb provider that, you wrap your application inside? This looks much cleaner, right? Bulb provider, something like this. This looks much cleaner than the whole big blob that we had written. How can I create a bulb provider component that has all the, context management logic so that I don't have to put it over here? Just create a wrapper component. We have done some wrapper components when we understood children in the offline videos. Create a wrapper component, bulb provider, which will take some children as an input. What are the children? In this case, it is this light component. Children क्या होते हैं? Whatever you write inside the component is what comes in this children prop. Basically, in this case, the children prop will look something like this. It will have the light component. I get the children over here. And यहाँ पे put all of your provider logic. यहाँ पे put all of your state logic. Create a simple bulb provider. Just how these guys have created a context provider, wallet provider, wallet model provider. Whatever variables you need, define them in that component. Create a wrapper component yourself. You can do things without it as well, but this is a more cleaner way to do it. Okay, define whatever you need over here. Take some children as an input and render those children inside the bulb context provider. I know some of you are confused. I'll take you through the code again. But what I'm doing over here is creating a separate function, which eventually we will hide. We will put it in a separate file. We will hide it from our main logic over here. Our main logic now looks so much cleaner. Bulb provider, light, khatam. Light bulb, light switch, khatam. This guy gets the variable from somewhere, uses it over here, khatam. This guy gets some variables from here, uses them over here. Because I put all the ugly logic, all the providing logic in a wrapper component. What is a wrapper component? Here, I will wrap my main application around this component. तो इस component में होगा क्या? It will take some children as an input, which in our case is this light component, and it will wrap that light component. यहाँ पे light component आ जाएगा. It will wrap it inside this bulb context dot provider. That way, the logic that we had written over here has just been moved out into our custom bulb provider. We have created a custom bulb provider. यहाँ पे, wrap your main application like this. Now, if you are a library, if you create a bulb library.js tomorrow, then you can just export this from there. Whoever is using your bulb library will simply use the context and doesn't have to worry about calling dot provider, defining a state, putting the state, so on and so forth. Do we understand creating our own custom provider? If you understand wrapper components, then this might have been easy. If you have not gone through the offline videos where we understood about this children prop, then this might be a little harder. Let me see if it works. It breaks right now. So I'm missing something obvious. Let's see what that is. I'm missing nothing. What am I missing? I know you guys can see it. I'm just trying to see if I can see it. Nothing in the console. All right, who can see it? Tell me. What am I missing? Return? Oh yeah, thank you, sir. Forgot to return the component. Appreciate it. Dolly Singh, I think that was your name. Now I see it. What did I do? I forgot to return this from the component. I had just, it was similar to me doing this. Return to kiya nahi, just define kar diya. So I just returned the bulb context provider, which renders the children inside. I know this is a little, it works as expected. I know it's a little complicated to understand. But let's say, if you remember the cards, if you did not understand this, you should go back to the offline video and go through this children's, this thing and create this card component. This also is very similar. I take some children as an input, wrap them inside a div which has some styles. What are we doing? I'm taking some children as an input, wrapping them inside a context provider. So all of this logic is hidden from my main app component. थोड़ा छुप गया कहीं जाके. Do we understand this? This got a little confusing. Let's do Q&A for 2-3 minutes. There's not much left. Now there are more. Recap. Rolling up and prop drilling में फर्क क्या है? Sure. Recap. If you have multiple states, then how to do that? Okay. What is the difference between prop drilling and rolling up state? Okay. Let's kick things off with the first question, which is, what is the difference between prop drilling and rolling up the state? Very different things, similar to what's the difference between, use state and lists and keys. इतना ज़्यादा फर्क है दोनों में. Rolling up the state means, okay, you move your state up the chain. You have to do this. इसके बिना तो काम होगा ही नहीं. If there is something you want to use here, and use here, you define that state variable here, and then you pass it down as a prop. This does not have prop drilling. If I define a state variable here, pass it here, pass it here, pass it here, I have just passed it down as a prop. No prop drilling. But if I define a variable here and pass it over here, यहाँ से यहाँ पे via props, यहाँ से यहाँ पे via props, then again via props, that is prop drilling. So sending it down multiple children when the children in the middle are not using it is what is called prop drilling. What is rolling up the state? Okay, if something this guy needs, and this guy needs, put it over here so that you can pass it down as props. That's the first question. Second question was context API recap. I'll do that. Redux versus context which is better? State management libraries are better. I'll come to why, but they are better. Why do you have to send bulb context inside the wrapper? Why do we have to send the bulb context inside the wrapper? I am not